Crystal glasses clinked as waiters glided past with silver trays. All except one who kept skipping the corner table. There sat a weary single father and his daughter, ignored for the third time. The girl's soft voice broke the silence. "Daddy, are we not good enough?" His chest tightened, just as the kitchen doors flew open and the restaurant's owner rushed out. Her eyes locked on him, freezing the room. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. The restaurant glittered like a palace against the September skyline, chandeliers scattering gold across polished marble. At a small corner table sat Michael Harris, a single father in his late 30s. He wore his best shirt, one his daughter Emily had ironed herself that morning. Emily, only 9, stared in awe at silk gowns and tailored suits while her stomach growled louder than the string quartet in the corner. But the waiter brushed past them again and again, pouring wine for businessmen and whispering to glamorous couples. Plates arrived at every table but theirs. Emily tugged Michael's sleeve. "Dad, are we not good enough?" The words stung like glass. Michael forced a smile, swallowing his anger. When the waiter finally stopped, it wasn't to serve them but to suggest, coldly, that perhaps they'd be more comfortable somewhere else. Emily's cheeks flushed crimson. Michael's jaw tightened. Then the kitchen doors burst open. A woman in a chef's coat strode out, her eyes locking on Michael like she'd seen a ghost. "Michael Harris?" she exclaimed, rushing toward him. The dining room went silent. Gasps rippled through the dining room as the woman embraced Michael like an old friend. Her chef's coat bore the embroidered name, Sarah Carter, the owner of the restaurant. Michael stiffened, unsure what to say. Emily's eyes darted between them, wide with confusion. Sarah pulled back, smiling through tears. "It's really you. The man who once saved my business." She turned on the stunned waiter. "Did you ignore them? Did you think they didn't belong here?" Her voice cracked like thunder. "This man is the reason I even have this restaurant." Whispers spread across the room. Michael's face burned. Years ago, he had helped repair Sarah's food truck late into the night after it nearly caught fire. He never asked for payment, just walked away. He hadn't thought about it since. But Sarah had. She waved them toward the kitchen, ignoring the waiter's stammered apology. "Tonight, you and your daughter are my guests of honor." Michael hesitated, torn between pride and gratitude. But Emily tugged his hand, her eyes pleading. The kitchen buzzed with sizzling pans and clattering knives, but Sarah cut through it all, clearing a space at the counter. "Sit," she insisted, guiding Michael and Emily onto stools as chefs scrambled to make room. Emily's eyes widened at the towering stacks of ingredients, her excitement melting away the sting of humiliation. Sarah crouched to Emily's level. "You like pancakes?" Emily nodded shyly. Sarah grinned. "Then tonight you'll make the first star-shaped pancakes ever served in my restaurant." The pastry chef slid a bowl of batter toward her, and soon Emily's laughter filled the kitchen, mixing with the scent of vanilla. Michael watched, overwhelmed. "You didn't have to do this," he murmured. "I did," Sarah said softly, pulling a folded napkin from her pocket. On it were faint, greasy blueprints. "You drew this years ago, the system that saved my truck. I've carried it every day since." Michael froze. He had forgotten that sketch entirely. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm building something bigger now, and I need your mind on my side." The clatter of the kitchen quieted as the man in the doorway stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his suit pressed so sharply it almost looked like armor. Sarah's smile faltered. "Michael," she said tensely, "this is my brother, David Carter." David's eyes scanned Michael and Emily with cold disdain. "So this is the man you're fussing over? A mechanic who eats scraps at our tables?" His words slithered through the air, poisoning the warmth of the room. Michael's fists tightened on his knees, but he stayed silent, Emily's small hand gripping his sleeve. Sarah's face flushed with anger. "Don't you dare. He saved my life once, and now he's going to help save this company." David chuckled darkly. "Our company, and I'll never let a nobody meddle with it." Chefs glanced nervously between them. The air hummed with tension, but Emily's clear little voice cut through. "He's not a nobody. He's my dad." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. David sneered, but his eyes flickered, unsettled by the girl's conviction. The next morning, sunlight spilled over the glass towers of downtown as Michael walked Emily to school. She skipped beside him, clutching her star-shaped pancake wrapped in foil, a treasure she refused to eat. "They like me in the kitchen," she said proudly. Michael smiled, though worry gnawed at him. Sarah's kindness felt real, but David's glare still echoed in his mind. When Michael arrived at the restaurant later that day, Sarah led him into a newly built room lined with polished steel pipes and glowing gauges. "Your napkin sketch inspired this," she admitted. "A safer gas system, but we need it perfected before expanding to 3 more locations." She looked at him earnestly. "I want you to design it." Michael's throat tightened. For years, he'd been overlooked, barely scraping by on odd jobs. Now he stood in front of a chance that could rewrite his and Emily's future. But before he could answer, David strode in, tossing a folder onto the table. "Background check," he said coldly. "Unstable work history. Debt. Custody hearings. This is who you're betting on." Sarah's jaw tightened. Michael's heart dropped. He hadn't realized David would dig so deep. Emily's custody battle was the one wound he never wanted strangers to touch. Michael left the restaurant late that night, the city air cool against his skin. The folder David had dropped still haunted him. Reminders of debts, failed jobs, and court documents stamped with cold black ink. For years, he had shielded Emily from that darkness. Now it was laid bare in front of strangers. At home, Emily was already asleep, her school drawings scattered across the table. One showed a house with smoke puffing from its chimney, the words "Home with Dad" written above in crooked letters. Michael sank into a chair, staring at it, wondering if he could ever give her the stability she deserved. Across the city, David nursed a glass of whiskey in his office, phone pressed to his ear. "Find me everything," he ordered. "Licenses, fines, any weak link. If my sister thinks this man belongs in our world, we'll prove her wrong." Meanwhile, Sarah stood alone in the darkened kitchen, that worn napkin in her hand. She whispered to herself, "I won't let him scare me this time." The restaurant was packed that Friday evening, every table glowing with candlelight and chatter. Michael sat in the kitchen, double-checking the schematics Sarah had handed him. His system wasn't finished yet, but David had insisted on hosting a special tasting anyway. Halfway through the night, a sharp hiss sliced through the kitchen noise. One of the new gas lines vibrated, pressure climbing too fast. A chef yelped, backing away as the stove flared higher than it should. Panic spread. Waiters whispered. Guests began to notice the commotion. Michael sprang forward, twisting valves, rerouting lines he had memorized like veins in his own hand. The flames died back just as smoke threatened to spill into the dining room. Emily, sitting quietly at the counter with her coloring book, gasped but never looked away, her faith in him unshaken. Sarah rushed in, eyes wide. "You just stopped a disaster," she breathed. David stepped from the shadows, slow clapping. "Or maybe he caused it. Convenient, don't you think?" His voice dripped with accusation, and murmurs rippled through the kitchen staff. Michael froze, realizing David had just planted a dangerous seed of doubt in everyone's mind. After the restaurant cleared out, Michael stayed behind, crouching by the pipes. His hands traced the scorch marks. The valve had been loosened deliberately. He swallowed hard. If that fire had spread, Emily could have been caught in the chaos. "Dad," Emily whispered, slipping from her chair with her sketchbook in hand. She pointed to a page she had drawn earlier that night. A man in a suit near the gas line, crouched low, his watch glinting under the kitchen lights. Michael blinked. She had sketched what she saw while coloring. "That's David's watch," she murmured, her little voice trembling. Michael's pulse quickened. Emily had noticed what no one else had. Sarah appeared behind them, exhausted but resolute. When she saw Emily's drawing, her face went pale. "If this is true," she whispered, "then my brother didn't just try to ruin you. He was willing to endanger everyone in this building." Michael clenched his fists, anger rising. He had endured humiliation, debt, and doubt, but threatening Emily's safety crossed a line. The next afternoon, the restaurant's main hall was filled with investors and journalists, lured by David's promise of an announcement. He stood at the podium, voice smooth, painting himself as the true visionary behind the Carter brand. Michael and Emily watched from the back, Sarah stiff at their side. When David raised a glass to toast a new era of safety and innovation, Sarah cut in, her heels striking the marble as she strode forward. "Funny," she said sharply. "Since last night you nearly burned this place to the ground." Gasps rippled through the crowd. David sneered. Baseless accusations from my sentimental sister? Don't embarrass yourself. But Michael stepped up, holding Emily's sketchbook open for all to see. Not just accusations. Evidence. The drawing showed David crouched near the gas line, the distinctive crack in his watch band unmistakable. Several chefs stepped forward too, recalling the flare-up, murmurs swelling into outrage. David's face blanched. He started to speak, but Sarah silenced him with a single line. You put lives at risk, including a child's. The room turned. Investors shifted uneasily. Journalists scribbled furiously. David's empire of control was cracking. The room erupted in shouts, flashes from cameras sparking like lightning. David's smug words echoed, chilling Sarah and Michael. What had he set in motion? Moments later, the fire alarm blared. Smoke curled from the kitchen. Panic rippled through the guests. David smirked, but Michael bolted past him, Emily's terrified voice crying, "Dad!" In the kitchen, a rag stuffed near the pilot light smoldered. Michael yanked it free, dousing the flames with steady hands. When the smoke cleared, everyone had seen the truth. Sabotage again. Time to make Sarah look incompetent. Police sirens wailed outside. An officer stepped in, already briefed by a call Sarah had made earlier that morning. She'd suspected David would try something desperate. The investors watched as David was handcuffed, his protests drowned by flashing cameras. Emily rushed into Michael's arms, whispering, "You stopped it, Dad. You stopped him." Sarah turned to Michael, her eyes shining. "You didn't just save my business again. You gave me the courage to fight back." Michael met her gaze, the weight of years lifting. For once, he wasn't the man overlooked or dismissed. He was the man who had given his daughter hope and earned a future he thought he'd lost. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.